Good afternoon, AFAM200 students, or good morning or good evening. Not sure when you'll be watching this. I did not want the time to go past without being able to expose you to a PowerPoint that I created for a gallery walk originally for our in-class activity. But I have turned it into a PowerPoint presentation with a little bit more explanation. So you see a lot of text on the PowerPoint because this was originally a gallery walk where students walked around the class and read everything. And then we had an interactive activity and discussion. So want you to be exposed to this because these are some women and people who have contributed significantly to leadership, social movements, and Black feminism. So again, excuse me because I'm a little clunky about sharing my screen. Turn that into, all right. All right. So like I said, I created this presentation originally as a timeline gallery walk for my AFAM200 students. And this is the first time that I have converted it over to a PowerPoint presentation for you all in AFAM200, the all online course. Black women have been at the forefront of activism, education, and social justice for centuries. Their leadership has been instrumental in shaping civil rights, feminism, literary movements, as well as social movements. This presentation examines Black women's contribution across 3 centuries and their lasting impact. We begin with the 19th century. Foundations of resistance and advocacy. The 19th century was defined by slavery, Reconstruction, and the beginning of formalized activism for Black rights. Some of the key contributors to this was Sojourner Truth, who delivered Ain't I a Woman in 1851, challenging the exclusion of Black women from feminist discourse, or Frances E.W. Harper, who advocated for abolition, women's rights, and Black suffrage, and famously speaking at the National Women's Rights Convention in 1866. Anna Julia Cooper, who was an acclaimed educator, scholar, activist, and was one of the first Black feminist publications of her book, A Voice from the South, in 1892. I'm going to give you a few minutes to read the slides, so I'll pause to make sure that you can catch everything on the bullet points. Next, we have Mary Church Terrell, a few of our educators and social activists. Mary Church Terrell co-founded the National Association of Colored Women's Club, NACWC, in 1896, promoting the slogan, "Lifting as we climb to empower Black communities." This was a slogan that was very much indoctrinated into me in my upbringing in the 60s and the 70s, that you do not gain access or prestige without reaching back and bringing someone with you and mentoring those around you. Ida B. Wells launched the anti-lynching campaign in 1892 after the lynching of her friends and used journalism as a way to expose racial violence. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to read through these. And Frances E.W. Harper, we talked about her previously. Next, we have one of my favorites, Mary McLeod Bethune, was often referred to as the first lady of Negro America. She was nationally recognized for her numerous efforts to enhance the circumstances of Black Americans and worked very closely with Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt. Mary McLeod Bethune was born in 1875, and she was number 15 of 17 children, and her parents were former slaves. She came up during the genesis of Jim Crow and the anti-Black violence that ultimately plagued the South for the duration of her young life and adult life sometimes. Educators like Lucy Craft Chaney, Charlotte Hawkins Brown, and Franny Jackson Chopson played key roles in expanding education for Black children. Black education is a key area of where Black people felt that they needed literacy after Reconstruction, and during the Reconstruction period, they were striving and starving to become literate and become controllers of their own destiny. And when we think about this period, this early period that we're just looking at, Black women laid the groundwork for intersectional activism by addressing both racial and gendered oppression. So that's the 19th century. Yeah, and I'm just pausing for a few minutes, making sure you have time to read through the bullet points. And remember, you can always rewatch this video, and this information will be included in upcoming assessments and evaluations, whether it be your quiz or your discussion boards. Now let's move on to the 20th century. We saw the Great Migration, we saw the Civil Rights Movement, we saw Black Power and the rise of Black feminist thought. So I'm sure some of you are familiar with the movie Hidden Figures. You may or may not, but Hidden Figures, the American Dream and the Untold Story of Black women mathematicians who helped win the space race, was first published on September 6, 2016. And the author is Margot Lee Shetterly, and the film adaptation appeared that same year. We saw how NASA's Black women mathematicians, Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson, were instrumental in the space race, breaking both racial and gender barriers in the STEM field, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. Again, giving you a few minutes to observe, because I do not read slides, folks. I just do not do that. But I do want to make sure you get the information. So if you haven't checked out the movie Hidden Figures, check it out. It's awesome. One of my other favorites, Zora Neale Hurston, pioneered Black women's narratives with Their Eyes Are Watching God in 1937. Zora Neale Hurston's novel, Their Eyes Are Watching God, was also adapted into a television movie, which premiered on ABC in March of 2005, starring Halle Berry in the leading role. Zora Neale Hurston was phenomenal activist and phenomenal. Like, if you haven't read any of her work or things, you should really pick it up. Black feminist literary scholarship during the 1980s and 1990s, Black feminist literary scholarship gained academic legitimacy, refining critical frameworks like intersectionality and womanism. Scholars such as Barbara Christian, Bell Hooks, and Kimberly Crenshaw challenged Eurocentric literary theory while reclaiming and centering Black voices in literature. This period saw the rediscovery of authors like Zora Neale Hurston and the global recognition of writers such as Toni Morrison and Alex Walker. Black feminist thought expanded across disciplines, influencing cultural studies, history, and legal theory, solidifying its impact on contemporary scholarship. And these were two seminal pieces, seminal works that you should expose yourself to if you really want to have a good breath of this. The Kumbaya River Collective and their statement on Black feminism. The Kumbaya River Collective, or CRC, was the Black feminist socialist organization active in the 1970s. Their 1970 Kumbaya River Collective that you all had to read articulated the need for a distinct Black feminist movement that addressed race, class, gender, and sexuality simultaneously. Intersectionality. Before the term was coined, the CRC statement highlighted the interconnectedness of oppression, laying the foundation for what Kimberly Crenshaw's later coined term of intersectionality would bring to us. They argued that Black women's experiences could not be reduced to just race or gender, but must be understood holistically. They critiqued white feminism and Black nationalism. The statement critiqued the statement critiqued the statement critiqued mainstream white feminism for ignoring race and Black liberation movements for their sexism, emphasizing that Black women's struggles were often sidelined. We see this in the women's suffrage movement earlier, and we also started seeing this in civil rights movement and Black Power movement. The CRC advocated for the liberation of all oppressed people, asserting that if Black women were free, it would necessitate the dismantling of all oppressive systems. Their work shaped contemporary Black feminist thought, influencing scholars like Bell Hooks, Audre Lorde, Patricia Hill Collins, and the broader development of intersectional feminist activism. And these are the women that are were part of the collective when they were younger. That's Barbara Christian, right? Barbara Smith, I think. Right there. Sorry, my little thing is moving, not great. Can't see both screens. Ella Baker, champion bottom-up leadership and collective action, emphasizing that true change comes from empowering everyday people rather than relying on charismatic leaders. Her model of leadership remains essential for students studying activism, democracy, and community organizations. Baker was instrumental in major civil rights organizations, including the NAACP, SCLC, and Students for Non-Violent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC. She played a behind the scenes yet critical role in shaping movements of our society. She helped found, like I said, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC, in 1960, urging students to take charge of their own activism and resist hierarchical, male-dominated leadership structures. Baker's work challenged sexism within the civil rights movement and serves as an example of Black women's leadership in shaping social justice efforts, making her a vital person for discussion on gender and activism. Her philosophy that strong people don't need strong leaders continues to inspire social movements today, from Black Lives Matter to grassroots education reform. Students studying history, social movements, and leadership can learn from Ella Baker's strategies to build sustainable, inclusive, and community-driven change. Audre Lorde was a Black feminist, poet, and activist whose work continues to inspire discussions on race, gender, sexuality, and social justice. She emphasized the power of self-definition, advocating that differences, whether racial, gender, or sexual, should be sources of our strength rather than division. Lorde's writing includes Sister Outsider, 1984, that challenged systems of oppression and called for intersectional activism long before the term was widely used. Her famous declaration, "Your silence will not protect you," encourages marginalized voices to speak out against injustice. As a leader, she laid the foundation for Black women's activism by centering lived experiences as a source of knowledge and power. Students learning about leadership, feminism, and activism can draw from Lorde's legacy to understand the importance of radical self-expression and coalition building in the fight for equality. Another favorite of mine. Oh, yes. I met her at a Women's and Gender Studies conference, and also one of my colleagues is working very closely with her and wrote a book with her. So Angela Davis is a revolutionary Black feminist scholar, activist, and leader known for her lifelong commitment to racial, gendered, and economic justice. Emerging as a prominent figure in the 1960s and 70s, Davis was deeply involved in the Black Panther Party, the Communist Party, and prison abolitionist movements. Wrongly imprisoned in 1970, her global support campaign made her a symbol of resistance. Her writings include Women, Race, and Class, 1981, and Are Prisons Obsolete, 2003, challenging systemic oppression, particularly in the criminal justice system. Davis's legacy continues to inspire movements like Black Lives Matter, advocating for abolitionist politics, feminism, and collective liberation. Students studying activism, social justice, and leadership can learn from her unwavering dedication to dismantling oppressive systems and reimagining a just society. She remains, Davis remains a powerful voice in social justice, continuing her work as a scholar, activist, and public intellectual. As a distinguished professor emerita at UC Santa Cruz, she lectures globally on abolition, feminism, and intersectionality. She recently delivered the Martin Luther King Jr. commemorative lecture at Cornell University in 2025 and participated in a conversation at Princeton University in 2024 on activism and liberation. Davis actively supports prison abolition movements and global struggles for justice. Her latest work, including Abolition, Feminism Now, that's the book she did with one of my colleagues, further her lifelong commitment to dismantling oppressive systems and reimagining a just society. I believe Abolition Feminism came out in either 2022 or 23, because we did a talk about that not too long ago. That's a great book. It's a quick read. You might want to check it out, especially if you're thinking about activism and how to do your part. Paula Gettings, this book, when I read this in undergrad, it blew my mind and changed my world. Paula Gettings is a historian scholar whose work has been essential in documenting Black women's activism and leadership. Her book, When and Why I Enter, published in 1984, highlights how Black women have shaped both racial and gender justice movements. While Ida, A Sword Among Lions, published in 2008, examines Ida B. Wells' fight against lynching, Giddings' research challenges mainstream histories that overlook Black women and provides a foundation for Black feminist thought. Her scholarship remains crucial for understanding how Black women's activism has influenced past and present struggles for justice and equality. Giddings' works help students to see the historical legacy of Black women's activism, reinforcing that their leadership has been central to shaping movements for racial and gender justice. Getting scholarship ensures that Black women's voices, struggles, and victories are not forgotten but remain crucial part of historical and contemporary narratives. Ntozake Shange. I love The Color Purple. One of my, I saw it dramatized as an undergrad. I saw it dramatized as a young professional. If you have not read this book, read it. It will change your world. It is much better than the movie. Ntozake Shange was a Black feminist poet, playwright, and novelist known for her powerful explorations of race, gender, and identity. Her most famous work, For Colored Girls Who Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Wasn't Enough, came out and was first published in 1976 and introduced a choreo poem, blending poetry, dance, music, and drama to depict Black women's struggle and resilience. Shange's work centers the lived experience of Black women, addressing themes of love, trauma, empowerment, and sisterhood. Through her plays, poetry, and novels, she redefined Black women's literature, offering a raw, lyrical, and deeply emotional portrayal of their lives. Her legacy continues to inspire Black feminist thought and artistic expression. Let's move. Moving now. So Dr. Mae Jemison is a trailblazing scientist and astronaut. She's the first Black woman in space in 1992 to travel to space abroad, the Space Shuttle Endeavour. Before NASA, she earned a medical degree from Cornell University and worked as a general practitioner and served in Peace Corps in West Africa. Jemison championed science education for women and people of color, founding the Jemison Group and the 100-Year Starship Project to promote space exploration. She combines science, technology, and the arts, emphasizing that creativity and science go hand in hand. Her legacy inspires young women, particularly Black girls, to pursue careers in STEM or science, technology, engineering, and math, breaking barriers in traditionally white male dominated fields. Jemison's contributions highlight the importance of representation, innovation, and interdisciplinary learning in shaping the future of science and space exploration. Patricia Hill Collins, I got to meet her too, y'all, is a Black feminist scholar best known for her groundbreaking work on intersectionality, knowledge production, and Black women's experiences. Her book, Black Feminist Thought, published in 1990, originally introduced the concept of the matrix of domination, explaining how race, class, gender, and other forms of oppression intersect. Expanding on Kimberly Crenshaw's concept by analyzing how systems of power interact to shape Black women's lives, Hill argues that Black women's lived experiences are sources of valuable knowledge, challenging Eurocentric academic traditions. Her influence in activism and policy goes to her theories of how they have shaped discussions on social justice, influencing movements like Black Lives Matters and feminist activism. Her work encourages inclusive teaching and the validations of Black women's experiences in academia. Her work continues to shape Black feminist thought, sociology, and education, ensuring that Black women's voices remain central to the discussions of justice and equity. Kimberly Crenshaw, you know, heard me say her name several times, so here's finally a picture if you've never seen her. In 1989, Crenshaw introduced the term intersectionality in her seminal paper that you all had to read, Marginalizing the Intersections of Race and Sex. This concept analyzes how overlapping social identities such as race and gender critique unique models of discrimination and privilege. As the foundational figure in critical race theory, Crenshaw examines how laws and legal institutions perpetuate racial inequalities, challenge traditional legal approaches, and that overlook systemic racism. In her academic role, Crenshaw serves as a professor at both UCLA Law School and Columbia Law School, specializing in civil rights, critical race study, and constitutional law. In 1996, she co-founded the AAPF, a think tank, African American Policy Forum, think tank dedicated to advancing racial justice, gender equality, and human rights. The Pound Say Her Name campaign, Crenshaw actively leads this initiative, bringing attention to Black women victims of police violence and advocating for inclusive racial justice narratives. Crenshaw's work continues to influence legal scholarship, social justice movements, and policies addressing complexities of intersection identities. Now we're moving to the present, the 20th century. The 21st century, excuse me. The 20th century saw Black women shaping the feminist and civil rights movement, creating intellectual and activist frameworks still used today. The 21st century introduced digital activism, global movements, and an expansion of Black feminist thought. One of the first people, Ruth J. Simmons, was the first Black president of an Ivy League university, Brown University, and is remembered for her groundbreaking leadership in higher education, her advocacy for diversity and opportunity, and her commitment to addressing the legacies of slavery and inequality. Born in 1948 in Grapeland, Texas, she was the youngest of 12 children in a sharecropping family. She rose from humble beginnings to become a trailblazer in academia. She served as president for Smith College from 1995 to 2001, then Brown University from 2001 to 2012, and Prairie View A&M University from 2017 to 2023. Oh, y'all know I love bell hooks. I always tell y'all that. Bell Hooks was a pioneering Black feminist scholar, cultural critic that we recently lost in 2021, an educator whose work has transformed discussions on race, gender, class, and education. Through books like Ain't I a Woman, published in 1989, and Teaching to Transgress, published in 1994, Hooks challenged systemic oppression and championed intersectional feminism. Her concept of engaged pedagogy emphasized education as a practice of freedom, advocating for inclusive, student-centered learning. Hooks also critiqued media representations of Blackness and gender, urging for transformative, love-based activism. Her work remains foundational in Black feminist thought, critical race theory, and progressive education, shaping generations of scholars and educator activists. Brittany Cooper is a Black feminist scholar, cultural critic, and public intellectual known for her work on race, gender, and power in contemporary society. As a professor and co-founder of the Crunk Feminist Collective, she blends academic scholarship with activism and digital media engagement. Her book, Eloquent Rage, a Black feminist discovers her superpower, was published in 2018. It explores how Black women's anger is a force of social change. Cooper's work builds on intersectionality, Black feminist thought, and critical race theory, addressing issues of misogynoir, I think I'm saying that wrong, respectability politics, and historical erasure. She remains a leading voice in shaping modern Black feminist discourse and public intellectualism. Alicia Gaza, Patrice Cullors, and Opal Tomete, I hope I'm saying their name right, co-founded Black Lives Matter, or BLM, in 2013. After the acquittal of Trayvon Martin's killer, igniting a new wave of activism centered on racial justice, police brutality, and systemic oppression. Black Lives Matters, primarily led by Black women and queer activists, expanded beyond protest to a global human rights movement advocating for policy change and community empowerment. Their leadership highlights Black feminist principles, intersectionality, and collective organizing, amplifying voices often marginalized, including those of Black, trans, and non-binary people. BLM redefined modern activism, demonstrating the power of digital mobilization, decentralized leadership, and the enduring role of Black women and LGBTQ plus communities in shaping social justice movements. Moya Bailey is the Black feminist scholar, writer, and digital activist known for coining the term of misogynoir. I think I'm saying that wrong, which describes the unique forms of discrimination Black women face at the intersection of race and sexism. Her work examines how media, technology, and healthcare impact Black women and gender nonconforming individuals. In her book, Misogynoir Transformed Black Women's Digital Resistance, published in 2021, Bailey explores how Black women use digital spaces to challenge oppression and create community. Her scholarship has been instrumental in shaping discussions on Black feminism, digital activism, and intersectionality, ensuring that Black women's voices and experience remain central to the fight for justice. And last but certainly not least, we have Tawana Burke, a civil rights activist and co-founder of the Pound Me Too movement, which was launched in 2006, to support Black and marginalized survivors of sexual violence. Her work gained global attention in 2017 when Hollywood actresses amplified the hashtag, sparking widespread conversations about sexual harassment, consent, and accountability. However, as the Me Too movement went viral, it was often framed through the lens of white celebrity feminism, sidelining Burke's original mission of centering Black women, working class survivors, and community-based healing. Despite this, Burke has remained steadfast advocate for reclaiming the movement's roots and pushing for intersectional approaches to justice. Through grassroots organizing and advocacy, she has redefined the fight against sexual violence, ensuring that Black women's experiences remain visible in mainstream feminist and social justice movements, inspiring a new generation of activism. So I leave you with this concluding thought. As you think about this presentation and the readings for week 7, how have Black women's contributions evolved over time, and how do these contributions continue to shape social justice movements today? Think about that, and I hope you enjoy your day. Let's stop sharing. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, don't hesitate to shoot me an email at d-wheeler@neiu.edu. Have a great day, students.